I am Tiffany Stepanski, one of your mentors on the mentoring team, and tonight we are going to talk about realtor safety. Super important topic, one we don't want to take lightly, of course, at all, especially as we are getting closer and closer to the holidays. Things happen, and we don't want any of those unfortunate incidents to happen to any of us, if at all possible. So tonight's presentation, tonight's presentation is going to be based on the article in the Texas Realtor magazine this month on page 23. So if you guys want to reference that for additional tips that we may not have time to discuss here this evening, please feel free to do so. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can see the presentation and go ahead and get started, okay? Let me know when you guys can see it. Heads up, thumbs up, everybody can see it. Hello? Feel free to talk. There we go, thank you. I'm like, feel free to talk, go ahead, talk to me. All right, so realtor safety, avoiding crime by appointment is our topic for the evening. And again, my name is Tiffany Stepanski. I'm, again, one of the mentors with your mentoring team here at Texas United Realty. And unfortunately, while we all love to help each and every person we come in contact with, not everyone has our best interests at heart as agents, as unfortunately some of our fellow agents have found out. This is just a short list of, unfortunately, a few agents who have died, unfortunately, during the commission of their job in different ways. Miss Monique Ball and Miss Beverly Carter, unfortunately, were lured to the home by a fake request for a home showing. They did go to the home, in which they were then kidnapped and unfortunately murdered by the individuals that kidnapped them. Miss Sarah Walker was actually conducting an open house, as well as Miss Ashley Oakland. And as they were conducting the open house, an individual came in and assaulted and murdered them. Unfortunately, Ashley Oakland's murderer has never been found, and the case for these top two are still ongoing. And then there's also, even after showings, where we still have to be cautious and careful. Mr. Stefano Barbosa was an agent who had already conducted an open house and was closing up the house when he was basically kidnapped at gunpoint, forced to go to an ATM, and then was shot and killed, unfortunately, following an open house that he had already completed. So before, during, and after the commission of our jobs, unfortunately, we kind of have to keep our head on a swivel and be super, super vigilant about making sure of our surroundings at all times and doing as best we can a good job about making sure who's around us and what's going on around us. And of course, it's 2021, everything is online, and our online safety is just as important as our in-person safety, and we have to be aware. A lot of times people will contact us through our different social media platforms or advertisements wanting to see a home or see a property or get some sort of assistance from us. And while that is very exciting, we also have to handle it with a grain of salt as well, making sure that the individual is who they say they are. Some ways we can actually do this is by, one, making sure we are meeting them in a public place, or even using the office if we're close enough to actually meet them and speak with them first. A lot of people will call who aren't necessarily interested in the home, will try to rush or pressure you to hurry up and meet them at the home. They're ready to buy now. They have cash immediately. We all know on average it takes anywhere from 2 weeks for a cash sale or 30 to 45 days for a financing deal to close. An additional 30 minutes for safety's sake to make sure we're identifying them. It's better to be safe than sorry. Also, too, we can screen them using their user profiles on social media. If they provide us their name, we can definitely try to kind of look ahead, get an idea of their face, get an idea of their name, that sort of thing. I know there's, kind of some common names out there where that may be a little bit more difficult, but you can also use the identification, asking for a copy of their identification in advance. And no, while we're not law enforcement, so we don't want to make it an uncomfortable situation for them or scenario for them, we can definitely let them know that, hey, if you would like to lease a property, we're going to have to turn in a copy of your identification. Could you just go ahead and text me or email me a copy of that so we can be prepared? Have them email you or text you a copy of their identification, and you can ask them to see it again when you meet them in person and make sure it's actually the same individual and matching. We're also going to talk about another tool that we can use in regards to that to make sure that the identification is not a fake ID that we're actually receiving and fake information that we're getting. We can also use this identification and forwarding it on to a trusted friend or family member, letting them know where we're going to be with this individual if we've never met them, especially if it's someone that we're kind of feeling uneasy about. All right. So some options of things that we can actually do. Like I said, we are referencing tips from this month's Texas Realtor magazine. And it's on page 23 if you want to reference it. If you haven't actually started reading those magazines, guys, make sure we don't just toss them out. They have some really good articles in regards to what's going on in not only our local area, but statewide. And then, some information like this that could be super, super helpful for us. One thing that we want to do is plan ahead rather than waiting until we are actually in the thick of a situation to try and deal with it. A way we can do that is actually by preparing ourselves with some sort of self-defense training. RAD stands for the Rape Aggression Defense Training, but literally it's super useful information for any type of aggressive defense situation. I've actually personally taken this training twice. It's offered usually for free by your local police department. Churches and colleges also usually offer the program for free at different times throughout the year. And this website you can actually go to and actually look up a class in your area for additional details. And I'd like to make sure that we actually see a demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second and pull that up so we can actually get an idea of what that training looks like. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is a parking garage scenario. The gentlemen who are dressed in the red suits are the aggressors. And then of course the young lady who's boxing them obviously is defending herself using the training that she actually received during the program. And while it can be a really intense situation, it's a very true to life situation and realistic to what you could possibly run into in different scenarios. In this instance, they're trying to get her into a vehicle that she doesn't want to get into in a parking garage. That could happen to us. And then I believe the next scenario was actually an ATM scenario where you actually have your back to the assailant. They come up from behind you and you're needing to defend yourself if they do come from behind you. And like I said, I can tell you from personal experience, it can be a very kind of a big adrenaline rush to have somebody, kind of trying to handle you like this. But I would much rather it be in a situation like this where it's in a controlled environment first, rather than a situation where you're in a dangerous situation and having to come up with what to do without any training whatsoever. That didn't stop, sorry. So definitely that's an option. Like I said, and it's actually a free option available to everyone, men and women. There we go. men and women. So if you'd like to take down the website, you are welcome to do so that you can look into that information. Another tip that was actually brought out by Texas Realtor magazine was making sure that we don't actually count on our firearms. We know that in Texas now, everybody can have a gun. Almost everybody can have a gun. And during this time, we want to make sure that we not only carry firearms safely, but we also don't want them used against us. So there are plenty of firearm safety courses and trainings that we highly encourage you to take in advance of a situation so that you can be prepared of what to do, and then often practice. And again, a more controlled environment so that when you get into the scenario, you can use that muscle memory to actually respond accordingly instead of getting into a situation where your firearm can be used against you or your weapon can be used against you. Also too, thinking ahead and being prepared is super important. And by prepare, we mean do it in advance. Don't necessarily get to the house if you are going to meet an individual at the property. Make sure that you can, number one, line out where you're going and send that information to a family member in advance. Also, to get to the property in advance. We have not visited every single home in Houston, so we don't know the layout. We don't know where the exits are or where would be the best positioning for maybe putting our phone to record a little bit to make sure, that there's not an altercation or an incident, when the person comes in the door. Try to get there 5 to 10 minutes in advance of the other individual so you can kind of get a layout of the land. The article also brought out some really good questions you can think about in advance, such as asking yourself, what would you do if someone tried to harm you in this home? What's the layout of the home? How or where would you escape? How would you defend yourself? Are there items in the home that you can use to assist you in getting away from the assailant? You want to make sure you're thinking ahead so it'll yield better results than trying to come up with a plan quickly. So that's all true, of course. Another thing we can do is making sure that we don't get separated or isolated. We all want to offer great customer service, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with opening a door and allowing someone to walk in before you and kind of lead the tour, as opposed to you walking in the door first and having them behind you and you can't see what's happening. And again, you get into a situation or a scenario where you're having to defend yourself, because of course that's never a good thing. So you want to make sure that you are not isolating or getting isolated from your exit plan and your exit route. Also to trust your gut and be ready to run. We all want to look nice, of course, and professional during our showings and our appointments and consultations with our clients and customers. But again, we need to kind of think smart and trust our gut. If the individual is really not showing an interest in the home, but they're showing more interest in you, asking you questions that maybe you're not comfortable with, maybe start to move the individual towards the front door or move yourself away from the individual and give yourself some space and some distance from that individual so that you can hopefully get away as quickly as possible. We also want to consider that with our cars and our parking situation, as opposed to parking in the driveway, maybe parking our car or our vehicle in the way of the exit of the street. So if we're parking, for example, into a cul-de-sac, instead of pulling up to the house and parking in the driveway or parking in front of the home, pointed towards the closed end of the street where we could possibly be blocked in by the assailant, make sure that we're actually parking our vehicle in a smart location that we can easily get to it, and also make sure that we can get away from the assailant as quickly as we need to. All right. So making sure that those details are in place for us in advance is always a good idea, as opposed to waiting until you get into the situation. Now for some tech tools, because it is 2021, so we do have technology available on our side, and some of these tech tools have actually been brought about based on some of those unfortunate incidences that I mentioned at the beginning of the program, have kind of yielded light to some of these apps that can actually assist you. So the first one is WearSafe Personal Safety app. The WearSafe Personal Safety app actually allows you to open the app and it'll stay open. You can push a green button if you are good, or you can slide the screen and report immediately your location to the police in the event of an emergency. It also allows you to put, I believe, 2 to 3 emergency contacts as well, who also would get the same alert and information in regards to your whereabouts and location at that moment in the event there's an issue or a problem. Checkpoint ID is actually the ID program that I was mentioning to you earlier. You can actually use it to scan an ID and it'll immediately let you know if it is a fake or if it's unable to identify as a real ID. Just so that you can, again, if we are going to ask for an ID, make sure and verify that they are who they say they are. And then the third is Agent Safe Walk. Agent Safe Walk, again, acts kind of like Wear Safe in the reporting of your location. However, it also puts you in line and connection with an individual who will kind of stay on the line or on the app and report any incidents for you in the event you're unable to actually communicate the information yourself. They're actually kind of acting as your spokesperson on your behalf. So 3 really good apps that can be used. And I'm sure if you Google or you check your app store on your device, you're sure to find several other safety features as well that you can use for your personal safety and protection. So did anybody have any questions or any thoughts they wanted to share in regards to realtor safety and how we can actually encourage it? I actually did have a special guest speaker about self-defense who was going to join us this evening, but unfortunately his little one is sick. So he's dealing with that, but he is going to actually schedule a Texas United Realty safety program for us within the next 30 days. So I'm going to get with Rick and Jeannie in regards to getting that information out to the brokerage once we get that appointment and that location scheduled for that. But in the meantime, if anybody has any questions, thoughts, or ideas, the floor is open.
I have a question.
Yes. Hi, Nick.
If we have our license to carry, do we have to have permission from the homeowner if we're walking into their property with a concealed weapon?
That is a great question. And unfortunately, I did try to look up that information with Trek earlier. There's not necessarily a specific hard rule on that, but would it be a courtesy, especially if the property is like occupied, or if the listing agent has let you know that there's like a recording device on the property? It would definitely be a great idea to identify that with the listing agent and with the seller if you're going to do that. So that way, in the event they're looking back at their video on their Ring doorbell or in the house, they're not alarmed by an individual walking through the property armed. They know and understand.
Well, it would be, I'm talking about if you have it concealed.
Right. But that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you have it concealed, of course, they wouldn't see it on video. But in the event there was an altercation or an incident, and they're going back to look at the video, you don't want them to necessarily think that you were the assailant instead of the agent.
So there's no set rule, but as
there's no set rule. Yeah. Trek was not much help to me this morning.
I searched that myself and I couldn't find anything. Okay, well, thank you.
They're working on it, but currently, according to legal and then according to the representative I spoke to this morning, this is all kind of new to them. They don't really have any hard, fast rules on that just yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No problem. Anybody else? Or if you have a personal experience, that you would like to share as well. Like I said, I shared my RAD training experience with you guys. But self-defense can come from karate, can come from any number of locations. So. Going once, going twice. So again, guys, I know it was kind of a serious subject tonight. Definitely don't want to necessarily trigger anyone, but we just want to be aware that unfortunately not every transaction goes as smoothly as we want it to, and that includes interactions with new clients and customers. So I do thank you for attending tonight's presentation. Please stay safe and alert, because of course we are getting closer and closer to the holidays. And sometimes people can have kind of a misconception of realtors that we're easy pickings, and we don't want to do that and put ourselves in any harm's way or scenarios in the future. So make sure you stay safe out there, guys, and take care. Like I said, I am Tiffany Stepanski with your mentoring team. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns or you want more information about the safety class that's going to be coming up, please feel free to contact me. My contact information's here. Thank you,
so
guys.
much, Tiffany. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.